Right.
Take money outside right away.
All right, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining our regular club meeting for May. So this month we've got Oliver Dully has joined us to give us a presentation on Winlink, and this is a nice follow-on from last month's meeting where we gave an intro to packet radio. So this is a perfect follow-on topic. So because we've got a guest speaker this month, rather than do our club business first like we normally do, we'll put that off until the end and we'll move straight on into the main topic for this month. So Oliver, if you're ready, we'll hand over straight to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And let me see whether I can share screen here. It's still disabled, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Try one more time.
All right. There you go. Excellent. Let me just go to the first thing here, and let's do the slideshow. And share screen. All right. I've got Phil KD6RM on the screen there. Phil, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up if you can see the first slide, just so we're on the... Thank you so much. It makes it easier. All right. In terms of doing this, understand that I can't read chats while we're doing this. So, but we do have Chris and the two Davids and Greg in there who I hope will monitor chats, and they can actually answer any questions that you may have. If you have any questions, please jump in or raise your hand. If you don't, please stay muted. That makes it more enjoyable for everybody as we're doing that. So double check your Zoom. And with that, let's go straight into this. I would like to say thank you so much for inviting us. And you'll hear me say us and we a lot. And that's not the royal us and royal we. But please understand that Winlink is a community effort. None of this would happen without our friends who are working together with us. I just came from another meeting, the alert group here in Altadena. And a lot of what you see today came out of us working together and making Winlink more and more user-friendly and usable and providing feedback, testing, and so on. So without any further ado, again, thank you so much for having me. My name is Oliver, K6OLI, and I'm the District Emergency Coordinator for the ARRL Northeast District. You can always reach me at my call sign at ARRL.net if you have any follow-up questions after this. And I also happen to be a member of the Winlink development team, and there I deal with agencies and forms development. I work very closely with Greg and Mike, KG6SJT Greg, and Mike N6KCB, and so a lot of the forms that you'll see today have our imprint on that. All right, here's ARRL Northeast District. One of the things that I'd like to point out all the time is ARRL is in a very lucky position. We actually have a very concrete mission, and that is to support the 70 911 receiving hospitals in the 10 million inhabitant county of Los Angeles. That also means for us this isn't kind of would do, what could be, and so on. We have very clear ideas of what we need to do, and we also have very clear ideas of what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And we're also very aggressive in discarding any techniques or procedures or technologies that do not work. When the big earthquake happens, you want to have technologies that are tried and true and proven and work in your context. Now, what works for us doesn't necessarily have to work for you because your context is different. So keep that in mind as we're going through that. Keep in mind there are 4 ARRL districts. We're in the Northeast. We have 22 hospitals that are in our district. Not all of them have ARRL. Some have their own groups. Some have no amateur radio support. But that's pretty much what we're trying to do. The little red building there, that's the that's the EOC, so to speak, for the Emergency Operations Center for the hospitals in all of LA County, not just the ones that we support. And it's called the Medical Alert Center. And it's also called the MAC, and that works out of the Emergency Services Agency. And so understand our job is to get traffic to and from the MAC, from the hospitals, and to connect the hospitals with one another. And more recently, thanks to Winlink, with their stakeholders, their partners, and so on in a disaster. And down here on the left, you see a part of our group that supported the Walk for Kids this weekend, and it was a fun time. And we didn't use Winlink there. It was all handhelds, and it was a whole lot of fun because at the end of the day, none of this works without you, the amateur radio operator, without all the people who show up in all these and really make amateur radio networks happen. And you hear me talk about networks a lot as we go through. Okay, let's start at the beginning. What is Winlink? Just a quick show of hands. Let me just make the videos larger and I move you over here to the side so you can see. A quick show of hands. How many of you have used Winlink before? Have an idea of it? All right, so quite a few there. Excellent. How many of you would say that you use it more than once a month? Just, okay. Good group still, outstanding. So let's ask ourselves, what is Winlink? Well, at its most basic, it's email over radio. And believe it or not, it may sound so obvious. That was when I got into Winlink, that wasn't perfectly clear to me or a whole lot of other people. But really what it is email over radio. And that is extremely powerful. Every time I give this talk to agencies, they're just flabbergasted that that can be done. A lot of emergency communications, and the way hams approach it, they think about it as tactical, right? You stand at a crossroads, and the fire department said, "Don't move until and tell us what's going on." And it's really easy to do that on a handheld or on a small mobile kit. But there's a lot more to emergency and disaster response, and one of them is logistical traffic, and we'll address that in a moment. But that is really where email over radio shines. And if you've ever been involved in an incident of any size, it stands and falls not with operations. And I know the operations guys want to be right up front there and center and say, yeah, that's it. At the end of the day, it stands and falls with the logistics. If you do not have the support to conduct your operations, then your entire disaster response becomes a disaster, and you cannot do. There are going to be a whole variety of resource shortages that you'll have to deal with, and the better you can handle that, the better this is. And to give you a quick example, a German ham friend of mine, Gerald, was in the Philippines when Hainan, the large cyclone/typhoon, struck, and he turned on just a receiver on their emergency frequency on HF, and the first thing he heard was that this is Tacloban, which is a city in the Philippines. We need 3,000 body bags. And 3,000 body bags at first sounds shocking, but understand, for the 3,000 people for whom these body bags were intended, they don't need any more resources other than the body bags and refrigeration. But there were hundreds of thousands of people all over the islands that were affected by this catastrophe, who were alive, who were either injured, or if they weren't injured, then they needed food because the infrastructure was very much impacted. And for the next 2 weeks, they sent the resource requests on voice. And Gerald said there has to be a better way. So he and his friends in the Philippines actually worked very hard to bring up a couple of Winlink gateways, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But understand that this isn't theoretical. This isn't something that people are just drawing out from nowhere. Also understand that our guidance from the Medical Alert Center was build the capacity to send spreadsheets. If you, the amateur radio operators, can send spreadsheets and forms, we're golden, because every form at a hospital, every resource request, every bed availability request, status report, it all starts as a spreadsheet. And if you don't have to write it down and then do it via voice, if you can send it digitally, Very powerful. Which brings me to my next point, and this is where I think a lot of people will be surprised. Winlink is also an incident management aid. Thanks to Greg and Mike, there is a whole slew of outstanding forms available in Winlink that help you develop and work on an incident action plan for any type of incident. You don't have to bring the whole gaggle of forms with you. We recommend you always have paper forms, but you can actually manage the incident from within Winlink if you know what you're doing, especially if you've taken ICS 300, 400 and kind of worked in these kind of disaster environments. You know how valuable that is to have it all on your laptop and to be able to distribute it on that same platform. Very powerful. And then another point about this is it's a multi-mode communication tool. As amateur radio operators, we have an enormous amount of access to different bands. We can send via HF bands, a whole variety of them. We can send VHF, UHF. We can send messages via Arden Mesh, right, in the microwave spectrum. That is all available to us. And in addition to that, if you have an internet connection, we can use the same platform and send the information via the internet and receive it via the internet. So we have a lot of flexibility that a lot of agencies do not have because they're very often locked into a specific radio system that may or may not support this kind of action. So think of Winlink as a toolbox, and it has various tools that you can apply, especially if you know what you're doing. So why does ARRL LAX use Winlink? I'll give you a moment to just, is there any are there any doctors or nurses in this group? Show hands. Carol? All right, Carol. Then please tell me how, I'm probably butchering them, ciprofloxacin capsule? It's just, how do I pronounce that, Carol?
Ciprofloxacin.
There you go. So I have a tough time just pronouncing it. Now imagine me telling another ham who's got as much of an idea how to pronounce it, and then I have to spell it, and it will be Charlie, India, Papa, Romeo, Oscar, and asking for fills and readbacks. Imagine how much time that takes. I'm an amateur radio operator. I have nothing to do, and thank you so much, Carol, I have nothing to do with medical terms whatsoever. If the medical personnel can give me this information on a USB stick and I can send it, that saves an enormous amount of time, and you kind of understanding hopefully how valuable this is to an organization like the Medical Alert Center that has 70 911 receiving hospitals that it needs to communicate with, and another 5,000, you heard that right, 5,000 extended care facilities. So they really were looking for something that can do this, and we are really happy because this list on voice, and we've tried it, takes me about 15 minutes with the readbacks and making sure that everything goes, and Carol will probably be able to also tell you that spelling matters a whole lot. Some medication names are very, very close in spelling, and they do entirely different things, right, Carol? Yeah, so spelling matters a whole lot. So number one there is accuracy, and if we can get it directly from our hospital and send it directly to the Medical Alert Center, that adds a lot of power to us as a conduit, our amateur radio networks. And again, I've offered people to do a spelling, do this on voice, and some people I've offered to, I've say, if any of you want to do that via Morse code, and we have a whole list that we've actually done for the statewide medical health exercise with 120 entries. Be my guest, try it out, and see how well you do, because it takes a long time to do that. So that's why we at ARRL LAX decided to do Winlink. We also did N-beams, and we tried that out. So understand, we used to be 50-50, but we've moved over almost entirely with Winlink. So in Winlink, you have error correction. That's a big plus. You can do that in N-beams, but it is extremely crude and it's really difficult to do. So for us, because we're not distributing information, we're not broadcasting, so to speak. I know there's no broadcasting in amateur radio, but very often if you use N-beams, you want to tell a wide area something's going on, right? So it has its uses. But error correction is a big plus there. The message either goes through 100% or not at all. And if it doesn't go through at all, you can find a different path. Very powerful. And the other one is speed. on packet, and I know you had a talk about this, you are looking about 5 kilobytes per minute, right? Not super fast. You certainly wouldn't want to send any spreadsheets or Word documents, etc. You would look for CSVs and TXT files to make the files smaller to make, but you're looking about 5 kilobytes per minute. Vara FM is anywhere between 30 kilobytes and 80 kilobytes per minute, so it's much faster than this. And by the way, I'll show you a little bit later that you have some options in Sound Modem as well to speed things up. But that was a big step. When Vara FM came onto the scene, that was a big step forward because now we could send spreadsheets. Because most spreadsheets, even with a lot of data, tend to be around 20 to shall we say 20 to 60 kilobytes roughly of the spreadsheets that we send, especially if there are no graphics in there, right? And then of course you can do Winlink forms, and Greg has done a phenomenal job because what the Winlink forms do, they compress the data and essentially expand it on the other side. So you have the initial form where you enter the data, it compresses it, makes it into a small message, and we'll show you what that looks like. And then on the other side, you can expand it back in an HTML, nice, and it actually reads really, really nicely, and you have all the lines in there. And some agencies really like having the forms look exactly the way they expect them to look. Spreadsheets, we talked about that. CSVs obviously are smaller, so if you want to do packet, you definitely want to learn how to save as a CSV, but you're losing a lot of the formatting that you may have been adding. Excel sheets and ODF sheet files are between 10 and 100 kilobytes, realistically speaking. All right, so far so good. Now you know what kind of traffic you want to move on there. Let's move on. You have operators, and again, you will hear me a lot talk about the operators because the operators make the system work. It's not the radios, it's not the computers, it's not all the other stuff. It's the operators. It's you that make the whole system work. At its most basic level, and this is how I like to start, and a lot of people start from the other side, but I like to start from this. At the most basic level, if you have nothing else, you can send messages between two or more operators in what is called peer-to-peer mode. So you connect your computer via a modem to the radio, and that sent the traffic to another operator. And that works. If all else fails, you still have that. As long as you have power and your radios are good and your computer has power, you can do this. And we've done this for long periods of time. It works. If nothing else, this will work. And our Thursday night practice nets, for example, one, let's say the operator here on the left would be net control, and then you have, just like any other net, you've got anywhere between 8 and 15 stations, and they connect with your net control on a peer-to-peer basis. When we have large exercises, usually the traffic station is different from net control. Net control only does the traffic, manages the traffic, but we have a traffic station that takes all the traffic. But when all else fails, that works. And that works on HF, it works on VHF, UHF, and it works on mesh, ARRL mesh. It's all the same principle, and you will hear me repeat this over and over again. Then you have another option. There's a whole slew of gateways that are available, or radio message servers, RMS as they're also called, but generally refer to them as gateways. And so you have operator 1 here on the left can send messages to RMS 1, and those two gateways can exchange information, and the other operator might be located in a different location, maybe on the other side of the hill, can connect to his or her RMS and pick up that information. And you can do this via radio. The gateway to gateway connection can be via radio. So another option, of course, if they're in the same area, operator 1 and operator 2 here can use the same gateway, and the message stays there until it's being picked up. And there's some differences and advantages to that we'll get to in the next slide. But that's really the radio side of things. So at this point, understand, we haven't used any internet. Most people, can go internet. Yeah, but our basic assumption has to be the worst case scenario. What happens if we don't have what we usually have? We only have what we have in our apartments, our Go kits, our houses, our offices, etc. And then, of course, lastly, you can actually get the information on the Amazon through the Amazon cloud. There used to be 5 servers globally that did this. There's only one backup server left now in a secret location, San Diego. And understand, so the information you can send, operator 1 can send the information here to the RMS. If it has an internet connection, if that gateway has an internet connection, it sends it to the internet, the Amazon cloud, where operator 2 here can pick it up from any other gateway, because when he or she logs in, the gateway checks, are there any messages for me? And it does that very quickly. And then it can download that message and then pass it on to that person via radio. So far, so good. Any questions so far? Pretty straightforward, right? Alrighty. Let me deconflict some information, because I know a lot of people have had issues with that. Whenever even some people experienced with Winlink have had issues with this. Let's compare what peer-to-peer and Winlink gateway sessions are. When you talk about Winlink, and I know it's a little bit confusing, when you talk about Winlink sessions, they generally refer to gateway sessions. And then peer-to-peer sessions refer to what I just showed you, people talking directly with one another. The important thing to remember here is, in peer-to-peer, both stations have to be in the same session. So if operator 1 is in VARA FM, operator 2 has to be in VARA FM. They can't be in different sessions, right? If one is in packet, 2 has to be in packet. One is in VARA HF, the other one has to be in VARA HF. Only then can you have a peer-to-peer session. And they both need to be in active sessions at the same time. So if operator 1 here is in VARA FM and the other one's in packet, they cannot exchange information because those 2 modems are incompatible, right? So if you add now an RMS or a gateway to this, you expand that a whole lot, because now, if depending on how the gateway is set up, but most of them support multiple protocols at the same time. So you've got a VARA FM person that can deposit her information in VARA FM. The other person picks it up and packet. It doesn't matter, because the gateway handles this, right? You can do Arden Mesh, and all of this is brought together by a gateway. The same thing goes on the HF side. VARA HF can use the same gateway, Pactor can use the same gateway. They can all use this as a post office, just like your local post office in your town. People send the message to the post office, but you really don't care how it gets there, whether your postal worker goes there by bicycle, by electric car, whether flies a plane, is completely irrelevant. It'll be at the post office. And the same goes when you go pick it up, or the other postal worker picks it up. You don't care whether they bring it back to you on a plane or a bicycle or in a car, completely irrelevant to you. And that's part of the advantage of this. I also want to point out that the RMS gateway does not have to be a large computer. I use this here as an image, but it doesn't have to be a large computer. Guess what? You can run it on a small laptop, so you can bring the gateway with you. And that's really powerful in and of itself as well. So who uses Winlink? Let's talk about that for a moment. In amateur radio operations, by and large, ARRIs and EMCOM groups use this extensively. In the private sector, a lot of people on sailboats use this, and for international communication, you're out in the middle of nowhere, maybe as a backup to your satellite phone, maybe as a primary, and the satellite phone is a backup. In the CISA share side of things, where shares is a program run by the government, they have their own frequencies. It's not amateur radio, they have their own frequencies, and you do have the advantage of having encryption on there. But it's outfits like the Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, CalOES, FEMA Region 10 is very active in Winlink, and they actually integrate both their amateur radio and their share stations, and they work very closely together. That's not really the case here in Region 9 as much, but just keep that in mind. And here's an image that I took last September actually, but we could show you a live image. It looks very similar to this. And these are the different HF connections that happened over about, 12-hour period. So you see it's a very active system. It's very active here in the Northwest. There's activity here in California, and of course a lot on the East Coast. Couple of examples of VARA HF gateways. You now know that gateways are post offices. You can send and receive messages from them. VARA HF, obviously on high frequency, you can actually use all of these gateways. They're more now than they used to be then, but they've been sprouting. But understand, 4 or 5 years ago, there was no VARA at all. So people have really taken to this, and they're providing this service. This is all done by people privately who are doing this on their own dime. So a big thank you to everybody who's a sysop. But it's a good coverage, and understand on HF, especially now with the sunspot cycle increasing, that has a big advantage because you can reach more and more of these gateways more and more regularly. There's a downside to that too, right? There's a lot more QRM. So understand there's no, where there's sun, there's rain, right? But here's another example of the SoCal packet gateways, and you have to talk about packet. This is one of the things that you can use it for. You can see in our area, and again, this has already changed. There are more packet gateways now than there were when I took this picture a couple weeks ago. But you can see here in the Pasadena area, there are quite a few stations, gateway stations. You have a couple here. This is actually DHG who's with us tonight. And so understand that there are a lot of local area gateways that are available. Generally speaking, if it says public, anybody can use it. If it says MCOM, those are considered private gateways. And by and large, most MCOM sysops do not have a problem with you using it on an occasional basis. But if you ever plan on using them, those gateways, particularly those gateways, or any gateways I should say, but particularly the MCOM gateways for an organized exercise, please contact the sysop beforehand. We've had examples where some organizations that shall go unnamed have had exercises, and it caused a lot of, because their stations weren't properly trained, the sysops actually started turning off their gateways because of that. Because they were trashing the gateways, were really hard on the equipment, and that's what you want to avoid. You want to keep your messages and your transmissions as short as possible. This is what disaster in MCOM is all about, right? A couple of pros and caveats about Winlink in general, and I think we need to talk about this. One big pro is multiband. You can do it via any network, VHF, and you got HF. So you have a whole VHF, UHF. You have a whole slew of options that's very flexible as a system. Multi-mode. You can use things like Pactor, which is extremely robust, expensive but robust. Can use VARA HF, very powerful, $69, runs off a sound card, very flexible. Can VARA FM, same thing. Packet, of course, and I will go through a couple of the packet options in a moment. You can do local, regional, and national and international communication. So you're not really fixed to any particular infrastructure. If you're with a cell phone provider, and I'm sure all of you are, if their network goes down, you're kind of sunk. And especially if you don't have any roaming agreements in your area. So keep that in mind. One of the nice things that amateur radio operators bring to the table is we don't need any infrastructure if it's gone. We can do peer-to-peer. It's really powerful. It's flexible, and Winlink is inexpensive. There's a small NAG screen if you want to use it for free. Absolutely no problem. And I think last time I checked it was $28, so it could have changed. But it's a one-time donation. It's really inexpensive to do that. It's a familiar interface. How many of you do not use email? Show of hands. Anybody? All right. How many of you think that having email when the internet is gone, it would be really useful? All right. looks like we've got a consensus there. So understand it's a very familiar interface. For those of you who remember Outlook 98, and I admit that I do. I see some of the younger people shaking their heads. That's essentially what it looks like. And in the old days when you still had a modem to get your information out, then it was exactly the same thing. You put the information in the outbox, connect it, and then you sent the information, right? And then, of course, there's the power of the amateur radio community. Here's the thing. You don't have to bus us in, you don't have to fly us in, you don't have to truck us in. We already live in the affected area. Dozens of us, hundreds of us, and not just in the affected area, around the affected area. So if you have a network of operators already there, use them. And for those of you working for agencies, please, for the love of God, give your amateur radio operators very clear instructions on what you want them to do, because that empowers them to really come up with creative solutions. And I have to say, in our group, I am really, really lucky that we have a group of people who come up with ingenious solutions for pretty much any problem that we're being given. Couple of caveats. One of the things is you need an amateur radio shares license to send this, and that's a big one, right? Not as much of an issue if you have any connection to the outside world and you can send it to the internet. Pretty powerful stuff there. There's no encryption in amateur radio. For those of you working with hospitals, please make that clear whenever you before you send any data. And for us, there is a standard line that we give our operators, especially when there's patient information involved, that they say, listen, you understand that none of this information is encrypted. The FCC prohibits us from encrypting that information. And only then they proceed to send, because the decision to send or not is not the amateur radio operator's decision. Never is. It's the agency you serve. It's the hospital you serve. It's the county. And just to give you an example, we wanted to do a demonstration at the last statewide medical health exercise we did, and we sent a HICS, Hospital Incident Command Form 254, which is patient tracking, and they were all made up names. One of the characters in this was a Donald Duck, and I thought we were giving them a heart attack at the county level, because they are just thinking HIPAA, we're going to get sued, and understand their sensitivities. For you as an amateur radio operators, we're just the conduit. Completely doesn't matter to us, but it matters to the hospital. It matters to the county EMS agency. So keep that in mind, please. Make sure that you tell people what the limitations are. I really want to encourage you to do that. And by the way, if they make that decision to send it anyways, that's their decision, then we'll send the traffic. Message size is limited to 120 kilobytes. And quite frankly, on HF, that's completely unrealistic. On HF, if it's more than 5, maybe 8 kilobytes, you're already in trouble. So try and keep your messages as small as possible. In most cases, you want to send 10 to 20 kilobytes on VHF, right? And then the circuit capacity needs to be very carefully managed. There are a lot of people out there who will talk about, we got this great system, Winlink, I'll do all of it. No, it's just the circuit capacity, just like it is with voice, just like it is with CW, with anything you do, with any communications you do, is very limited. And you need to very carefully manage that. In areas LAX Northeast, the way we manage is with the voice net control. We actually tell people when to send traffic, so it's not willy-nilly. It looks automatic for you, but let me tell you, when we do shakeout, and a lot of these untrained groups come in and they just fire away at the gateways, they can shut down pretty much anything. One thing I learned that way was QPSK beats VARA FM every single time. I had this one station who kept just transmitting right over me until I switched to QPSK, and then she could just do whatever she wanted. She didn't get through anymore, but keep that in mind, right? You want to manage circuit capacity. VHF, UHF, or mesh? That is the question, right? Let's ask you, our ham radio operators, what would be your first go-to? Anybody? Just unmute.
Packet would probably be the go-to, just because I can get a reliable thing on 5 watts and it goes right through fast, and not including telnet or something like that.
So Kent, you cut off in the beginning. You said which one?
Packet, Winlink packet.
Packet, good call.
VHF, yeah.
VHF.
You got one vote for VHF. Who else? Carol?
Yeah, I said VHF.
VHF, all right. And then Troy, you had your hand up.
That was a mistake. Sorry.
No worries. All right. VHF, I like what I'm hearing. I think we're all on the same wavelength here. VHF is the workhorse for what we do for a couple of reasons. And the main reason is this. Thank you, Kent and Carol. All disasters start and end at the local level. For those of you who've taken ICS courses, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? So VHF, UHF is the workhorse. It gives you the most flexibility, especially in the early hours of an event when you're trying to connect with your community. So that is where you want your focus to be. If you can put up mesh, that should be your next go-to if you have line of sight, because now you're adding broadband. And then lastly, very lastly, you want to add HF for a couple of reasons. One, you've got extremely limited bandwidth on HF. Two, it's great for moving traffic out of the area. But for local traffic, again, you're really fighting the narrow bandwidth all the time, or narrow circuit capacity, I should say. So understand there's big room for HF to get messages out of the area, like did you feel it reports and so on, maybe get in contact with outside agencies. But that's really, your focus should be in the beginning, especially on VHF, UHF. And we've done that very, like 90% of what we do is VHF, UHF, and the other 10% are mesh and HF. And this is what it looks like when we have our network flow. We have a question. All right. In our case, Jeff here, and I just, he's actually a person, he usually brings a portable gateway with him when he goes to the medical alert center, which is where all the EOC for hospitals, if you remember, right? And then you've got operators who get their traffic from their hospital liaisons, let's say Tom at White Memorial, and he chooses to send it via VARA FM. You have Robert at Verdugo, very high hospital, and he has an Arden connection to Jeff. He can send it via Arden Mesh. And you've got Lynn in Pomona who might want to use Packet because he has to go around mountain, and so Packet might be the way to use digipeating, although VARA FM does digipeating now too. And then Jeff can aggregate that information and then give it to the Mac. And by the way, I gave this talk not too long ago to a group in Washington, and they say, oh, well, do you have a kind of a secret way to get it into the Mac, network access? And the answer is no. Technically, the way this works right now, and continues to work for network security reasons, is Jeff receives it, prints it out, and hands it over, and at the Mac site, the personnel types it in. Just so we're all on this. But we can move the traffic really fast to the Mac. From there on out, it's printing, right? And that's your local disaster response. In the first 3 days, that's what pretty much 95% of your traffic will look like. So please understand that. After that, once you start looking towards the state and federal response, you actually will start moving traffic outside, but relatively small amounts of traffic. And usually that goes from wherever you are. In our case, usually we use a gateway that forwards the information that needs to go out of area via HF, VARA HF, PACT, or RDOB, and to an out-of-area gateway. They're gateways that we know we can reach all the time in San Francisco, Las Vegas, in Arizona, and a couple of other places. And from there it goes to the internet, and then it can go to, I don't know, probably not Cal OES, but FEMA, can take traffic, just as an example, right? Could also be your family. If you wanted to let your family know that you're okay because and your local communications don't work, understand this could be your family out here. All right, how-to tools. Let's just go through this relatively quickly. Conceptually, this is what we do. Winlink is the front-end program. This is your messaging program. You create the messages, you read the messages, that all happens in Winlink. From Winlink, you tell the system which modem you want to use, because you want to modulate and demodulate any of the information you're sending. You're taking digital information, you're turning it into sounds. That's how it works, right? And you can use hardware or software and sound card modems. We'll talk briefly about TNC. So you need a modem in there, right? In this case, I'm showing you VARA FM and a signal link. So if you have a signal link, you're good to go. Very easy. That modulates and demodulates the signals, and then you have a radio that sends the information out, and you can hear that with the sounds. Funny enough, I used the TMD 710GA here as the example. That has a built-in TNC. So if you have a 710, it has a TNC, you plug your cable into the back of the head, you can actually send Winlink messages. It's not the fastest TNC in the world, but it does the job, right? So let's talk about what kind of options you have to modulate and demodulate the system, because we get asked that a lot. The signal link is extremely popular. A couple of years ago, everybody wanted to get into a couple of digital modes. So a lot of people bought signal links. Some of them never set them up. But if you have one lying around at home, you don't need to buy anything additional. And I'm not going to get into these discussions about, the RIM boards or the DRA boards are better for 9600, blah, blah, blah. In the field, when you're actually doing this for real and in large-scale exercise, it makes zero difference. But the point there is very flexible. You got the signal links. XG Comms is in the UK. They make something very similar, but very flexible. You can do VARA FM, packet, VARA HF, RDOP, NBeams, all kinds of digital modes. Relatively super easy. And field operators, that's probably your go-to of choice. It's very robust. You can use it with a wide variety of modes. So I highly recommend that. DRA boards work really well. They actually work slightly different. In Signalinks, you use a Vox to run the PTT here. It's an electronic system. VARA FM, you can use packet on that. Some people swear by it because it does wide. I have 2 of them, and they both live in my drawer. I've got 2 Signalinks, and they're my Go boxes. Just so you know. You can use NBeams with it now that more and more software supports it. They're good boards, very clean audio. You can adjust it, but again, I like the ability to adjust in the field with the front knobs. Some of you may have radios like the ICOM series radios that have built-in sound cards. You're golden because you can run pretty much all of this off those built-in sound cards. The FT991A, and I'm sure some of you have that too, is a great radio, but it is the single radio that requires the most support on the Winlink side. I don't know what Yesa was thinking when they implemented this. It is way too fiddly to use the built-in sound card. So on the FT991A, all the users that we have of that radio in our group went back to the Signalinks, because you can just plug and play with the Signalink. You don't have to worry about it. So the built-in sound card, great if you're only doing digital, but if you're doing fast-moving digital voice nets like we do, not really easy. So you're actually better keeping your Signalink there. But again, you can do VAR FM, packet, HF, RDOP, NBeams, HRD. All of that is doable. In most cases, your VAR FM bandwidth will be narrow. And some people say, well, if you don't do wide, jump off a bridge. This is complete nonsense. It makes zero difference in the field. Maybe if you're sitting at home a lot and you want to have maximum speed all the time, but in the field, makes no difference. Pactor modems only work with Pactor. They're anywhere from $1,200 to $2,200, by and large used by agencies, and very, very good radios, very robust. They get the signal through really, really effectively. Closest competitor to it is VARA HF. Those are the 2 top runners. When situations get really difficult, then Pactor will win out. VARA does really great in speed and medium conditions really well. And then finally, you got TNC. Some of you may still own Kentronics. Don't throw them away. They work from Winlink just as well. You can only do packet with them. So let me say this right off the bat. There will be no VARA FM, only packet. But you have additional features like bulletin boards and so on that you can use for that. So no VARA FM, VARA HF, RDOP, none of this works because they're all sound card based systems. All right. And just to show you 2 quick options here with the sound cards on the left here, we've got the sound modem by UC7HO, and you can see by the call sign, he's actually from Ukraine. Phenomenal piece of kit. Highly recommend if you want to get into packet Winlink with a Signalink or a DRA board. That's the software to use in my mind. You can use Direwolf. It does work, but UC7HO much more robust and it gives you a lot more options, right? You can do packet, BPSK, APSK, and QPSK, and quite frankly, QPSK 2400. You can get about 20 kilobytes per minute with that, and it works extremely well. It's very robust. And then, of course, there's VARA, VARA FM, $69 if you want to buy it. And when you buy the registration keys, it unlocks the faster speeds, but it's still faster than regular AX25 packet, right? Alrighty, and this is how it works. We'll go over this again, this time with pictures. Your computer, you have Winlink on there. You write your message. You pick your VARA FM session, gateway session, or peer-to-peer, remember. The VARA FM then modulates the signal with the help of the Signalink, which turns it into a sound. The sound then is transmitted by your radio and goes out, and when the receiving station receives it, it goes the other way back, right? And of course, you can use UC7HO to do the same thing on packet. And here's the thing, if you like using NBeams or FLDigi, right, and FL message, then you can still use that all at the same time. In fact, most of us are running VARA FM and UC7HO concurrently and switch. Here are a couple of ways we use this. On the top left here, this was a in the park exercise. We believe in deployment exercises because it doesn't help us if we're thinking we're heroes at home. It needs to work in the field. And one of the things we do is the Baker to Vegas relay race. So we bring our Winlink equipment there and we send messages to our families at home. It's a whole lot of fun. But in the bottom left here, you see that picture where we did a CERT. We were asked to help CERT with a mesh network, which we did. And it was phenomenal because we were away about a mile from the EOC at that park. But there was an enormous tree in the line of sight between the two. So we actually had to move the signal 12 miles in order to get to the EOC, and involved JPL and Mount Wilson to make that happen. So it was kind of a fun thing, but it worked remarkably well. We sent video, data, and reports. The reports came in via Winlink. We used tactical 2 meters on handhelds for the voice, and we had a live video stream. And let me tell you, the city manager was super happy as an ex-Army guy. He was thrilled, as were the other people in the system. And then, of course, there you see David here in the back, who is here at the call tonight, and Jeff, W2JCL, and they're at the Medical Alert Center, and this is their setup. That's all they bring, in addition to the antennas. And they can make this work really, really well. On VARA FM, we regularly make it down to Tijuana, which is 200 kilometers, 120 miles, right? Other big thing that we have, of course, is Shakeout every year. And on the right here, you see every one of these dots was a Did You Feel It report that stations sent via Winlink. And that is a really fun form, because one of the things the form does is it automatically adds an email to the United States Geological Survey, the USGS, and you report the intensity you're observing to them directly using Winlink. And that's really, really powerful stuff, because here's the thing. If they get asked, where shall we send the support, guess where they're sending it to. If they don't have any reports from an area, like the donut hole where communications don't work, you don't send anybody there. But if you have a couple of reports saying it's really bad here, you're more likely to send that, and they get asked this. Another cool thing that we've got in Southern California is what we call the Autobahn. We agreed on a frequency and people put their gateways on there, and so you can actually use the digipeating functions in VARA FM and in Packet to move traffic all the way here from the county line in the east all the way into Simi Valley and Ventura County. So it's really, really powerful stuff, and all of these stations can actually talk with one another with a maximum of 2 hops. So some of them are gateways that have HF built in, so you could actually move traffic from any point here. Understand that any group here can hop onto any of these gateways and then move to the HF side and have the information forwarded for you. How cool is that? Another couple of features about Winlink a lot of people don't know is webmail. So you can check webmail, and you can do an online radio message viewer. Understand it's all public information. Everybody can see your messages. So if you're saying, Oliver's putting me to sleep on Winlink, probably somebody will send me a message saying, oh, I looked over the messages. You're really boring people. All right. Also, there's APRS integration. So you can send your position reports out there, and it'll show up on APRS. No, not sure why you would want to do that. You can actually send messages to and from via APRS. If you've ever tried to enter a message in APRS for Winlink, you'll be dead before the message is there, because you're doing this with those little keyboards on your call. All right, let's talk about using Winlink. There are 2 steps. Well, so far, let's first ask for questions. I think questions so far, are we clear? All right, most of you are still awake. I don't know about the people who turned off their video, but those of you who have the video on, you're still awake. Outstanding. All right, using Winlink. There are only 2 steps to use Winlink, and 2 steps to remember. 1, there's a message, and 2, there's a session. If you can remember those 2 steps.
Crazy fucker.
Okay. Message and session, right? So you got message 1, you compose the message, you select the message type. Do you want to send it via a Winlink gateway or peer-to-peer? And then you post it to Outbox, just like the old MS Outlook 98 worked, right? And then you have to tell Winlink the session. So it's not like Gmail, right, where you send the information and it goes out directly. You have to tell Winlink how you want to send the message, because that's where the power lies. So you select a session, you open the session, and you select and enter the Winlink gateway or peer you want to connect to, and then you start the session. And that's all there is to it. Crazy easy interface. For those of you who use email, you've seen all of this before. You've got your new message here, you've got your reply all, you've got an acknowledgement, you have forward without change, which locks down the message so no changes can be made anymore. That was one thing that the county requested from us, and Winlink made that happen. Very powerful stuff. You've got your inbox, your outbox, and here's your message. If it's in your inbox, you'll see your message here on the inside. You've got your message preview here, your message actions that we just went through, and your folders. All pretty straightforward. And on the top right, this is your session select, and we'll show you that in a moment, how that's actually done. And the other thing that I'd like to point out, because it took me a while to realize that when I got started on Winlink, if you have an attachment on that message, you can open the attachment and clicking on the paper clip. It's a very cool little tool. You can go to attachment, shows you all the attachments, but very often the easiest way to get to it is just click on the paper clip. That'll bring up especially the HTML attachments, right? Enter a new message. The to and CC should be very familiar to all of you. If you're sending to another amateur radio operator within Winlink, you don't have to add anything, just the call sign is enough. You can send to email address outside, especially if you have an internet connected RMS gateway or gateway on the other side. You can send it to a cell phone, just like you can send any email to a cell phone, right? In this case, don't try it. This is just a made-up number. But essentially, you can send the message to a cell phone. How powerful is that? You can use it for activations. I do that every year in Shakeout with my sister, where I send her a message via Winlink to her phone, and she texts back, and that way we know we can connect with one another, right? You then want to post to Outbox. That's what we've done. You've sent the message. You can select templates, and we'll show you a couple of those in a moment. And then, of course, you want to select your Winlink session, your message type, right? Is it a Winlink message through a gateway, or is it a peer-to-peer message? And please, for the love of God, ignore radio only. There are so many hams who see radio only and they say, "Ooh, radio only, that's what I want to do." No, don't use radio only. It was developed for a couple of agencies that have that as a requirement. There's no reason, none whatsoever, for amateur radio operators to use radio only. Because if the internet goes away, guess what? It is all radio only. And the message will either stay on the gateway where you sent it, and then you can tell the other person to pick it up from there. But radio only avoids internet at all costs. And that doesn't mean it's not visible on the message viewer. That's also one of those ideas that people have. I've sent it radio only, I go to a radio message viewer, nobody can. No, it's not how the system works. Right? So please ignore radio only. Winlink message and peer-to-peer, that's really what you want to select. And they have to be congruent with the session you pick. So if you send a Winlink gateway message, choose Winlink message and choose a gateway. If you do a peer-to-peer message, you want to use peer-to-peer here and choose a peer-to-peer session. They will not work across. So very often what you see in exercises is people are in a peer-to-peer session, but their message is defined as a Winlink message and it doesn't go. Or the other way around, they define it as a peer-to-peer message, but they're in a gateway session and it also doesn't go. So those need to match up, right? Forms and templates, they make this really super powerful. ICS forms, there's a whole slew of ICS forms. We'll show you this live in a moment. There are shares forms. LA County has a couple of forms in there for our medical stuff. And of course, the USGS Did You Feel It forms. For those of you, and again, the ICS forms have changed. We added the names to this, and they've gotten a lot more powerful. But for those of you who have had some ICS training, you see how valuable this is. Sessions. Here are your session choices. You pick your session. You got Telnet, which means just a regular internet session. If you're connected to the internet, that's what you use. You got Packet there. You've got Packdoor. Robust Packet is practically never used in North America. There are a couple of stations that do it in Europe, but practically never used. RDOP, also soundcard based system, but VARA HF, for anybody doing HF, highly recommended. VARA FM, very popular. So in most cases, we would use Telnet if we're connected to the internet, Packet, VARA HF, or VARA FM. And then you have the same options here as P2P, which means peer-to-peer sessions. All right, we talked about that. The other thing that's important to remember is this is a button, the open session here. So when you click on this, it opens the session. Just selecting the session doesn't do anything. You need to click on the open session. Resources, couple of things. The Winlink website, winlink.org, has lots of information with client software can be downloaded there. The software modems are available. Direwolf and UC7HO for packet are free, and Vara FM is free. Plus, or you can pay $69 for the higher speeds. There's the official Winlink Google Groups. I highly recommend that you take a look at that, because a lot of the questions you'll have will be answered. Use the search function, Luke. It's really important. I had a case where a really experienced ham who hadn't done a lot of Winlink dug out one of his radios. It was a Yaesu, was it FT891? And he wanted to know the settings. I don't have one of those, but I went to the Google Groups, looked it up, and sent him. And 5 minutes later, I get a Winlink message. Well, that worked so well, and I sent this via HF. There you go. So if you have experience, sometimes just looking up the settings helps. Then Winlink training classes, and Chris, I should add you there, but wavetalkers.com. Chris can give you more information, as well as David, W0DHG, David Aarons at me.com, and Dan at NR6V. They have classes where they really walk you through practically 1 hour at a time, anywhere from 4 to 5 weeks, and they have a lot of that information already. If you want to go at your own pace on their website, you can actually look it up. So highly recommend that, and wavetalkers.com is the website to do that. All right, enough talk. Let's do showtime. Shall we go and show you an example? Yeah? No? All righty. All right, let's start with something very simple. We talked about this. Let me just move the Zoom stuff out of the way. I'll make this a little bit larger so you can see this. Alrighty. So, how do we send a message? Very easy. We start with a new message. You can hover over this. It will actually show you, right? Any changes, the Winlink Express setup is right up here. And, good. My password isn't shown. This is your Winlink setup, right? So understand that this is what we're looking at here. Very straightforward to fill in. There are great videos on YouTube about how to do that, so we're not going over that. But how do you send a new message? You click on New Message, and you can send the message to anybody you want to. Carol, I'll just put you. My chemistry teacher used to say you're the lemon of the day. We'll squeeze you for all your knowledge, right? So, but I'll use you as an example. KP4 MD, if that's okay. And let's say we do KK6DA, right? Who's also on it. And we can just type hello world, something simple. Oops. Right? And that's all there is to it. You've written your first message, you post it to the outbox. We select our session. In this case, I'll use internet because on this computer I don't have the radio connected. But David can show you if you want to how a Vara session looks like. And in this case, we select a session. We go to open. We do an internet session. Telnet Winlink. We go to open session. And just click on start. We sent the information. We download a couple of things already. All right. And that's how easy it was. And the same thing applies with every other system. If you want to do packet, right? You open that session. Unless it doesn't want to open. Give it a second here. Don't freeze on me now. That's the live demo part, right? But you can use a packet session. It'll open up your programs for you. In this case, the UC7HO modem, because I set it up this way. And I have the option to go to my channel selection. I can look what's close here. And this information is populated when you click on Update Table via Internet. But the grid square you enter in your setup that I showed you in a moment, actually gets you this information, whoever is close, right? Up to 300 kilometers from the center of your grid square. And then you can pick any station here, and it fills in the information, and you have to set on your radio, you have to set the frequency to the correct frequency, and then you can click on start and exchange information. And David will demonstrate that for you if you'd like. But that's how easy the sessions are. In my case, you know, you can see I use QPSK a lot. But let's talk about templates. For those of you who are working in emergency communications and disaster communications, anything of that sort, you can go start a new message, then go and select template, and you can go to your standard templates. They're California state templates, right? That's a California emergency that's moved to the Winlink check-in. There's some LA County forms that we worked on. San Diego has a couple of forms that they worked on. You have a couple of really cool forms here in the general forms. If you have Winlink available right now, I invite you to follow along. Let's say we want to do a Winlink check-in together. So we double click, we select the Winlink check-in, we double click on that, and that brings up our browser. And there are a couple of things I want to show you. The date and time, you can click on these fields and it updates the date and time. And Greg has done phenomenal work to make this extremely user-friendly. Tonight, we're doing an exercise, right? We can pick, is it not available? I'll send it by Telnet, but you can do VHF 220, you can do UHF, HF amateur, HF shares, just to give the other side an indication of how you sent the message. I'll pick Telnet because I don't want to lie. And let's say we go KP4MD is my recipient, and I can add more than that, KK6DA, right? And I could send this to a regular email as well. Separate your call signs with semicolons, then give the call sign of the initial operator, in my case it's K6OLI, and the station contact name. I can use my name, or it could be somebody that you report to, your hospital liaison, for example. A location, doesn't matter at all. I just choose Pasadena. And here comes the fun part, latitude and longitude. This is populated, if you have a GPS connected, automatically with your accurate location. If you do not have a GPS connected, then it's usually the center of your grid square. Or you can overwrite any of this manually, right? If I don't want to have 1285, I want to have 1290, I can put that in, and that will overwrite this. You can also enter your MGRS, your military grid reference system information here, and your grid will be calculated. You can add comments. We use that very often for CAN reports, right? Conditions, actions, needs. And then all you have to do is submit. Click OK on the next thing, and then you get a blank page. Close the page. In my case, we'll just go through post to outbox. See how it filled in all the information? And this is a nice feature about this. In the message, everything that we filled in the HTML is in the message. So even if the other side doesn't have Winlink, if it's an internet connected Gmail account and whatnot, the information is still there. And they can see that information. All the information we just entered is here in various formats, right? And then we click post to outbox. We open our session again. In my case, I'll go back to Telnet. And we click start, and let's see if any of you send any Winlink check-ins. There you go. Got a report from, get an answer back from Carol. And you see how quickly that worked, right? Received my message, immediate. And here's the thing, it's not a whole lot slower when you do this via packet or via FM. As long as there's an internet connection in there, the slowest part of this is your connection to that gateway. So let me show you one more thing here about the different forms, because I think that's really one of the powerful, we talked about this. This is the toolkit that you as an amateur radio operator can bring to an incident. You can go to the ICS USA forms, and you can bring, for those of you who've taken ICS 300, 400, you can essentially do your planning P. The most important forms are all listed here. Not all of the ICS forms are there, but the most important forms to manage an incident are there. And as radio operators, you should all be familiar with the ICS 205, right? The radio communications plan. and you can choose those, fill them out. Some of them work. You can work with them with spreadsheets, go back and forth. There are lots, and that could be a whole other talk, but the forms are a world in and of themselves. The other thing that we have are mapping and GIS forms. That's the latest thing that's come to Winlink. So if you have a form that has latitude and longitude in it, you can map that information within Winlink. I'll show you in a moment what that looks like, and then I think we'll wrap up. The other thing I want to do a shout out, if you ever do any shakeout or earthquake drills, highly recommend that you take a look at the USGS Did You Feel It form, because that's unique in many ways, because one, you send it directly to the USGS, and the other thing is, unlike the web form they have, you can do exercises with this. And you're not messing up their database. You hit the exercise button and give it a good name. They know it's part of a structured exercise. And again, there are whole talks about this. That's a separate topic here, but very cool. Citizen scientists, right? Let me show you real quick the new mapping feature. It's about 5 months old, 6 months old right now. You can click on the little globe up here, and it brings up information. In this case, I think we talked about the field situation report earlier. Let me show you a couple of Winlink check-ins, what that looks like. You can choose different mapping providers. And yes, the maps are cached, but the more you use it, the more of the maps are being cached on your system. So keep that in mind. If you have a brand new installation, there won't be any maps in there, right? So in my case, I like Google Terrain, just makes it easy for me. And then you can click on Display Map, and you see you have 162 check-ins here from past exercises and presentations. And in this case, you don't see any of them because chances are my filters are turned on. So let's turn those off, clear all the selections, click OK. And then you see check-ins that we've received over the last couple of weeks. And you can actually dig into these check-ins and take a close look at what's going on. And here's the cool part. You can hover over it. It tells you who sent the check-in, how old it is, what kind of message it is. You can click on it, and guess what? All the information that you entered in the HTML actually shows up. How cool is that? Imagine the situational awareness you can bring with that. And if you take the comments, right? Let me see if I can find one with comments here. They didn't do comments. If you add comments, they can tell you what's going on in that situation, right? We've done exercises like that. You can have different filters. Let me give you another example here. The LA County Bed Availability Report is a great example for that. That's an official form for LA County that we copied there. And you can set filters, right, to show different things. If I say, listen, show me everything that has more than 2 telemetry beds and show it to me in green, right? So I know I need telemetry beds, which hospitals in the area have this. And this is information that you, the amateur radio operators, submitted via Winlink. I can click on this and it shows me, oh, this hospital has it, this hospital, if the patient's here, I can say, listen, take a look at this. We can send the patient there. That's the closest hospital. How powerful is that? That really empowers you, the amateur radio operator, to give people a great overview in the EOC and beyond. And you got many more options here now with the different color markers. You can have several markers being displayed, several conditions being displayed. But it's very, very powerful, right? All right. With that, I do want to thank you for your attention. I know we only scratched the surface. I do highly recommend, if you want to learn how to do this with hands-on exercises and being stepped through, wavetalkers.com. They do great work. They're free classes, and they take their private time. Big thanks to David, Dan, and Chris for making this happen on a regular basis. Highly recommend that you step through that, and they will help you with your setup, with all the little issues you might want to run into. I know this was a lot of stuff, but do we have any questions? Here, let me stop my share.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Kent, go ahead.
Okay. One thing I found useful, and this might really be useful in the field, is have a USB GPS thing that you can, I just put it on my stapler. It's just magnetic. It's kind of like what you have with Sirius XM thing on your car if you have something like that. And this goes to USB, and then it gives you, you don't have to figure out if you're in the middle of Butte Meadows when there's no cell service, it still gets the GPS signal.
Yeah, Kent, highly recommend a USB dongle, and it's a really great tool. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And they're not super expensive. You can get some. I have some on Amazon that were like $12. They work brilliantly on U-Blocks based. There's one by GlobalSat that Phil Sherrod of the Winlink development team recommends. It's about $25. Unless he recommends it, then it's $35 for a month because the demand pops up. But it's a phenomenal little item, and as Kent pointed out, it comes with a little magnet at the bottom. You can put it on. I wouldn't drive around with it, but when you're in your car working, pop it on top of that. Great, and it saves you, as Kent pointed out, saves you a lot of headaches about figuring out your information. Anybody know whether they have a GPS in their possession right now?
Caltropo, whatever it is,
Yeah,
on my cell phone.
Caltopo is a good idea. Carol is nodding there. Yes? Do you have a GPS on you right now?
Well, it's on my cell phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's on your cell phone. There you go. And James is raising his hand, right?
Wow.
I am. Hi, thanks Oliver for the presentation. I have a 991, so it was nice to hear that you've heard that the 991 is hard to program because I've really struggled with it. So you'd recommend getting a signal link for the 991 for Winlink, or just get a different radio?
I think the less expensive option is a signal link or a DRA board. Either one will serve you really well. They're pretty much plug and play. The DRA, I think 50 works really well for that. And if you're not shy about building it yourself, I am. I don't have a technical background, so soldering. I have a soldering iron asset, but it still scares the bejeebies out of me. So I'm willing to admit that. But if you're willing to do that, you can actually save quite a bit of money building it yourself, or you can buy pre-built, and that's around $100. So
thank you. One other question. I'm a Mac user, not a Windows user, and is there any software that you recommend that will work on a Mac?
I would pass that on to David because he uses a Mac. I've been Windows all my life, and I've been dealing with Windows all my life. So the frustration is part of the
parallels.
Parallels. Dan has that has a suggestion there. So Parallels working. I think Chris is running Parallels, right?
Yeah, Parallels, and I'm straight up a Mac user. I've got lots of Macs. I went out and got a Surface Go because it's small. It just goes in the go bag, and then I don't have to think about it anymore. Unfortunately, Winlink requires a bunch of components that are Windows only, and there's not a real Mac option out there, especially one that does all of the things that Oliver has been talking about.
Okay, so what is it called? The Windows Go?
The Windows Microsoft Surface Go.
Surface Go. Okay.
It looks like this. It looks like an iPad, but it runs Windows. If you get the Surface Go 2, it runs Windows 10. If you get the Surface Go 3, it runs Windows 11. It works. Both of them work just fine. I literally just watched Best Buy for an open box sale and picked one up. You don't need even a super fancy one to, that has all the whiz bang features. The base model works just fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got this Asus here. That is a T102, and that was like $350 when I bought it. And that's been my primary go. I mean, look at the form factor, and it runs on 9 volts. I can actually hook it up to the solar panel directly to the USB, and it'll charge it because it also does 5 volts. So it's brilliant.
Okay. Thank you.
The other thing you will want if you go with one of the Surface Go's is there's only one USB port on them. So get one of the little multi-port adapters so you can plug other stuff into it.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Thank you both.
I've been a slave to computers for 40 some years, 37 of them for a federal agency, which unfortunately mandated the use of Windows. Since then, since I've retired, Parallels on MacBooks and Mac Pros has been the best Windows environment I've seen, bar none. Just my opinion, but it's a hard fought and painfully learned opinion. Windows just does stuff that makes no sense at all, and Parallels moderates that to a great extent. Plus, you can go and do normal stuff while it's updating. So you never get surprised. Just every morning you go see when you load Windows if it wants to update stuff. And if you pay attention, Windows Defender actually is great because it'll sometimes update itself every 3 or 4 hours, depending on how vicious the most recent vulnerabilities are, and who reports it and how they report it. But I have a question for you, Ollie. I got caught again when you said you brought up the issue of HIPAA while you're serving the hospitals. Am I mistaken, or if the medical health operational area coordinator blessed it, could the hospital or hospital systems not obtain shares licenses that would put an end to those concerns?
Guess what some of our hospitals are doing as we speak.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So it just seemed like, chapter and verse litany, we're good amateurs, we don't encrypt. HIPAA isn't encryption and nobody understands it really, but everybody worries about it. If you have shares license, that goes away.
Yeah, if it is a concern, I think for the hospitals, and hospitals do qualify for shares, so it's that is definitely an option. The challenge with shares is always the people running it, because anybody within the organization can run it, but not everybody has the skills to actually set up a share station. So you rely again on the amateur radio operator. So it has to be if it's amateur radio led, I think then it works. If it's not, then you have these really expensive radios sitting around in the basement somewhere nobody knows how to use. And we have seen that in exercises where people brought out these commercial radios, and half of them had dead batteries, and the 25% didn't work anymore, and the others where the antennas were so this stuff does happen. So that's also something that I'd really like to point out here is use it at a minimum once a month. If you do Winlink, if you do training for disasters, use it. Have fun with it, because let's face it, if we ever have to use this for real, it won't be fun. But in the meantime, have fun with it. Come up with crazy ideas, zombie attacks. Tron gave me this little patch that I have on my go bag that says, well, at least it's not zombies.
Well, look, in addition to, how do I say it, Winlink being intimidating to new users, you come along and Greg and Steve and others, and stuff is being accreted to Winlink in all kinds of areas that are, sort of professional information technology management. And, the average amateur may or may not absorb that, but they don't really need to if they pay attention to the curricula that you and yours have laid out on how to become fluent with Winlink. I know I learned Winlink 3 or 4 times.
And it is a very different program from what it was 6 months ago, from what it was a year ago, from what it was 5 years ago. And it is evolving, and I would encourage you to provide feedback, because the end users make the system. And I've been really blessed of being able to work with Greg and Mike and Steve and the whole gang to make these changes happen. And it is an all volunteer effort. People sometimes forget that. People do this on their own dime and their own time. And so understand that not everything can be implemented simply because there aren't enough resources to throw at it. But if it can be done with reasonable effort, it will be done. And again, a big shout out to Greg, because without Greg, we wouldn't have that toolbox of forms. And the forms really sell it. And I challenge any of you to go with an agency, whether you're a CERT or you're working fire department, sheriff department, hospital, and show them those forms and see what their reaction is.
Yeah, so my question for Greg, where are you, Greg, is can you do a complete IAP, or what? Are you missing anything other than
We're not missing anything. That IAP, you can do a complete IAP. In fact, we've done IAPs with with just within Winlink. You have the 201. There's a quick IAP, which is kind of a short 201 in the general forms, but you've got the 202. You've got the entire slew of things. You can do full IAP through the entire planning P if you wanted to. And that was a goal, and Greg's been working like crazy to make that happen. So I just can't say enough about Greg.
I can't say enough about Greg to start with, and he keeps upping the ante.
Yeah, exactly. David, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to add, early on when Oliver started talking about it, he started with Winlink as email over amateur radio, and then he went to this. It's a whole emergency management suite. We should change the order. It's an emergency management suite that can do email over amateur radio, because it really has. It's a game changer, completely game changer.
I try to get corporate web EOS to become a sponsor to the Amateur Radio Safety Foundation.
Yeah, how fun would that be? Greg K, 06TH, you've got your hand up.
Hi. So to the Mac question, I run Winlink with Pat on a Raspberry Pi. Packet only, works great. I use it.
That's my question.
I'm out in the middle of Western States, right? We do Winlink back and forth using 1200 baud packet on Raspberry Pi with I just VNC into it with an ancient laptop, or you can use a local screen. I guess so that works great. Forums works as well. All that stuff's good. Is there a version of Pat for the Mac?
Yes.
Kind of closed loop.
It wasn't as advanced when I looked at it 2 years ago.
Pat was designed to work on Mac, and I think they have I haven't looked at it in a while. I actually have it running on my Windows machine, which don't tell the people who develop Pat, but I've got it running on my Windows machine. But I'm pretty sure there was a Mac, because I know that Tron tried it on her Mac. That's how she got started with Pat.
Yeah,
I know it works really well on Linux. People tell me.
It's I mean, even Raspberry Pi, it's a Pi 4, but it's still just Pi 3 actually. But it works, and as long as you don't need Vera, and I understand the developer of Vera is not really interested in porting it to the platform. But for 1200 baud packet or Telnet, works great.
Yeah, and that gives you two options, right?
Or RDOP too. RDOP works.
Yeah, mesh, and you can do, and if you can do.
Is there RDOP for the Pi?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's what I've heard. Yeah.
I gotta check that out. Thank you.
Understand though that RDOP and Rick Muthing, by the way, is a genius, right? I mean, he came up with WinMore and so on, and he's also the author of RDOP, but he actually recommends people use VARA HF whenever they can. Part of they ported RDOP for Linux for the Pi, so it does work. Ken's absolutely right about that. I'm not a Linux person at all, but I've seen people make it work, so it can work. Understand that under anything worse than medium conditions, you'll have a tough time with RDOP, just like you would have had with WinMore. And VARA HF is more robust, and then of course Pactor, and that's a different ballgame right there.
Yeah,
that brings up an interesting question. Today's question for the DoD Netcom for amateurs to collect and provide tomorrow at noon is, what is your average ping time to 8.8.8.8? And that sort of puts a slant on it. We're going off topic here, but that's why I was late. I was trying to figure out, I couldn't really hear it on my 16 foot above ground level NVIS antenna on 6 meters from wherever they were, 60 meters, excuse me, from wherever they were broadcasting the instructions. But it was, I discovered through other means that it was for various locations. What's your average ping time to 8.8.8.8? And if that doesn't say what they're interested in, I don't know what else does.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dan. And yeah, I mean, understand this. It's a powerful system, and we live in a world where I think our communications are a lot more vulnerable than any of us would like them to be, right?
Okay.
So having the option and the skills more so than anything else, I think is really valuable. And Greg, thank you so much for your question. All right, let's take 2 more questions if there are any.
Yeah, I'd just like to mention, for those of you who are going to be working field day, you can use Winlink to send your field day site report to your section manager using the radiogram template and get 100 extra points for field day. So that's an incentive for you to set up Winlink at your field day site.
Thank you, Carol. Great point. And by the way, if you're already up and running, send it to your field it too, and make the exercise field day. That'll make USGS super happy.
Carol, is that restricted to section managers or does it include SECs?
I think it's either one. I'll have to review that. That's in the field day packet there.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess I'll have to read it too.
Mhm.
All right. Any other question? Last question. Any other comments? Going once, going twice. All right. With that, I do know it was a lot of information. I do want to thank you so much for your patience and for sticking it through. You've been a brilliant audience. I really appreciated all the questions. And so if you have any future questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or the 2 Davids, Chris and Dan, who isn't here tonight. Greg, leave the poor man alone. I'm just kidding, Greg. I'm just saying it was great being here, and I know you have other points on your agenda. So with that, I would like to say thank you so much for inviting us. And this is a group effort. Understand we're here as a resource for you also during disasters. We would love to work with you for exercises throughout the area. So please feel free to reach out if you're interested. And we're happy to include you in all our exercises. All right.
And if this was overwhelming, don't feel bad. The first half the time I listened to Holly, I was going, what? And that not understanding what he was talking about is what made me buckle down and look closely at Winlink. And you can do it too. The resources are so much better now than they were 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Absolutely, Dan, and a lot of people contributed to this, and so I do want to say thank you, Dan, for really being an advocate for excellence in emergency communications and disaster response. So we really appreciate that. And with that, I do bid you all 7-3s. Thank you so much, Greg, David, Chris. I really appreciate it, and Carol for being really excellent in organizing this whole thing. I felt very welcome and part of the family here. So I think that's the biggest compliment I can pay. So thank you so much, and 7-3s all. I wish you all a good night.
Cool. Thanks, Oliver. Thanks for taking the time to join us tonight. It's an awesome presentation.
Will the recording be available?
It will be, yeah. We upload it to our YouTube channel, our club YouTube channel. So we can send out a follow-up on the meeting invite and send you a link.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks
Greg.
for joining us.
Thank you, Ollie. Poor Ollie. Poor Greg. Are you still there, Greg?
I'm still here.
Okay, how many digits of precision is
I'm still here.
okay, I'm hearing feedback. How many digits of precision is Winlink handling for the digital GPS? You got a break in your audio stream.
I think generally we're using
Okay, we'll talk about this later on the phone. You're not going to like the question.
All right. But let's move on to our club business. We've got a few things we need to follow up on. Let's see. Jojo, are you able to join us tonight, or are you just on audio only? I think he joined briefly earlier, but maybe he had to jump. Okay, so I've got his membership and treasury update, so I can give a quick summary on that. Let me just bring that up. Let's see. If I can find it. share screen. All right, so this is Jojo's membership and treasury report for this month. So this month we've got 185 paid up members to date, 2 more new members since April. We've got 124 paid for 2022. Looks like we're 71% paid up now as of this point. We had sad news that Guy W6GUI passed away. And then also Jojo wanted to point out Michael 86CQ. I didn't read through Jojo's notes, I'm sorry. So I think he's got some comments here. Passed all his CW tests. Just a shout out, thanks for joining the club. And we have lots to learn moving forward, that's good. And then Jojo's treasury update. So club bank balance as of today, 8,321.28. There's 3,076.64 in the repeater fund. And let's see, there's a few other news items here from Jojo. So field day is coming up. Check out notes on our club website for sign up and additional information about field day. Jojo also mentions we've got some club card magnets and stickers that have been sent out. So if you see an envelope come from the club and you're wondering what it's for, we had a bunch of club card magnets and stickers printed up, and they're all being sent out to all of our members. So you should get that in the mail pretty shortly. We'd also like to welcome our newest net control operator, James KN6QNJ. Thanks, James, for helping out with our net control. Always looking out for new net control operators for our weekly net. If anyone else is interested, let us know. Always helps to have a bunch of us on the roster to help out. And that was it from updates from Jojo this month. Carol, can we hand over to you to do an update on club website and social media?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Okay, am I sharing my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, this is for the past month, the web resource report for River City ARCS. And let's see, did that advance?
Yep, that's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
that works.
The regular header.
Good. Yeah, this is the just a snapshot of the website. Our URL is n6na.org, and we try to keep this updated with all the information about coming events. There's a calendar on there for so you can see all of our nets, net evenings, and our meetings and other community events. And we try to keep that updated. Of course, we did update our silent key page, and we added Guy Vaughn, W6GUI, who unfortunately passed away last month, April 12th. Also, a shout out to our website design team, Tom, Kevin, Jojo, and Sylvia helping me. You're doing an excellent job. We're pretty much all updated on the reformatting of our website. And Wednesday night is when we actually have our club nets, 8 p.m. tomorrow, on the 2 meter net. We're on 145.25. And we also are accessible through Echolink and All-Star. 8:30 p.m. is our 10 meter net, 28.420 megahertz upper sideband. All are welcome to check in. And we have a slow scan TV net on 441.30 megahertz at 9 p.m. That's a repeater. That's also live streamed on our YouTube channel as well. Website activity for April. We had an increase in our total views from 1141 in March to 2,294 in April. The peak web page views were 733, and that was on April 12th. And I always try to find out what causes these peaks, and the behavior of the internet is so unpredictable. The only thing different that we did on April 12th was we put out some announcements on our social media feeds about the International Space Station Slow Scan TV event. And for some reason, it went viral almost. There were 733 people that were directed towards our website on that particular day. We put up that announcement. The most active pages were our homepage, followed by our nets page, our repeater page, field day page, and then the Slow Scan TV net page. Most of our hits were direct to n6na.org, 54%. 32.2% came referred through Google. Most of our visits, of course, came from California, and we get visits from all over the world, all different countries. Guess what? Russia lit up again this month. For some reason, there were no visits the prior month, but I guess somehow we got through the great firewall of Russia there. On social media, we now have 370 subscribers on YouTube. That's gone up 3. On Facebook page, we have 581 followers. And on our Twitter page, we have 146 followers. And Discord chat server, we had 28. We just had a new addition there. We actually have 29 members now on our Discord chat. And again, if you want to send any email to any of the leadership, the board, directors, or the officers of the club, you can do that. Contact at n6na.org and it will be directed to the appropriate person. And thank you very much. Back to you, Kevin.
All right, thanks, Carol. Thanks for the updates. Before we wrap up for the evening, is there any other items of interest, any news announcements or any other general comments or anything?
Yes, I would like to also add that the field day is coming up. That's our annual big operating event of the year. And some of our new members, I'm sure, will not want to miss that. It's going to be June 25th and 26th at the VFW post in Fair Oaks, over there by Phoenix Park. If you're interested, you can commit to express what your interests are on our website. You can go to the field day page and sign up and let us know what days you would be available. The activity actually starts 11 a.m. was when the operating starts on Saturday, and it goes to 11 a.m. on Sunday. But we need people to help set up prior to that. And there's going to be a fox hunt on Saturday afternoon. If anybody wants to participate on that, they just need to bring a 2-meter handheld radio to have fun and trying to find a hidden transmitter. And there's going to be food there provided for operators and loggers. We need people to do all that kind of activity. I don't know, Kevin, did you want to add anything else about Field Day?
No, only to go to the club website. There's a whole bunch of information there from previous years. I think there's a link to we've got a document on there with some checklist, I think, for what we've set up in the past. So there's a whole bunch of information on our club website if anyone's interested, and links to other places as well, like the ARRL website that will talk about Field Day as well, if you want to get up to date with what it's about. Is Marty on? Do you want to give any updates, Marty, if you're on? Or maybe he dropped already.
Yeah, we actually had up to 54 people in this meeting here on Zoom, which was a pretty great number of people. And I'm sure we're going to get a lot more views on YouTube when it's up on YouTube. And I want to put a shout out there to Greg. Greg has a hand up, KG6SJT. Thanks for all the tremendous work you've done on the Winlink program. All those templates are fantastic.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to mention, if you're involved with working with the Western States Endurance Run or the Tevis Horse Endurance Ride, both of those events use Winlink extensively at each aid station and vet check to send in times and the status of horses. So it's good to learn. We have a template for that. Makes it super easy to fill it in. Give it a try or join up with somebody that's doing it. That's it.
All right, cool. Oh, thanks for sharing. That's good.
Yes.
All right. Any other items of interest for tonight from anyone? Any other general comments, questions?
Yeah, next meeting is going to be field day prep. It's the first Tuesday of June.
And Marty's presenting that, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So don't miss that.
Okay.
All right. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for joining. That was a really good meeting. We had great attendance tonight. Have a good month, and we'll catch up with you again on the next meeting. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Have a good one. All right. Bye.
Bye.